budget for Sweetwater County Commission. And we thank you for everybody that's here. First of all, I want to apologize for starting so late as our regular meeting and issue took a little longer than anticipated, but doesn't mean that all of you aren't important, but apologize for the time that you have waited and for the time that you're going to put in and that type of thing. So to get us started here, I'll first of all let our county accountant, Ms. Berry, to go with the budget overview, and then I'll have a few comments before we start with our first one, which will be Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So Connie or Bonnie?
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. I just wanted to review where we are at, just give you some summary figures. I'm going to go ahead and get into, let's see, the packet just to show you. Let's see if I can share my screen with you. Here we go. Share. Okay. So you've seen this similar layout previously. The numbers change every time we meet. So I've just updated the figures. These are the projected revenues and expenditure, requests that we have with some modifications by the board so far. So as you can see at the bottom, our total shortfall at this point is $9,353,465. That does not include the cash carryover. I have not been told whether or not the commission has decided to use a part of or all of the cash carryover. I did run an updated cash carryover projection yesterday, now that all of the May numbers are in. And now we're looking at a cash carryover of an estimated amount. Of course, it can change in June, but an estimated amount of roughly $5 million. So if the commission decides to use the cash carryover, if the commission decided to use all of it, for example, that would put us at a shortfall of roughly 4.3 million rather than the 9.3. If you use a portion, obviously that shortfall is going to get higher. It just depends on what the commission decides to do. If the commission decides not to use any of it, we're looking at a shortfall of 9.35 million. So that's where we are right now. Just to compare to last year's figures, this is kind of a comparison of where we were sitting last year. Last year, once the adjusted budget numbers were in, we were at a shortfall of 4.4 million. Our cash carryover last year was about 4.6. So the revenues are down this year significantly, and requests are up. I have removed the 12 million out for the lagoon facility. I'm not sure where the commission stands on that. I know in the past it's been talked about using that out of bonding or reserves. So to try to balance the budget, I've taken that out just so we can see where we are. That is all I have. So if there aren't any questions, we can move forward. Are there any questions for me?
Commissioners, any questions for Bonnie? All right.
Could I, thank you. Could I ask, the cash carryover, was there any one or two big items that pushed us to the cash carryover this year, or was it just kind of onesie twosies, departments and things not spending what they budgeted for, or was there some reason that it's, large? I mean, 5 million.
So originally hopefully this will answer your question. Originally, I projected it to be 6.4 million. About over 5 million of that was made up of expenditures that weren't spent. So departments that weren't projected to spend all of their budget. That was, I think, about 5.2 or 5.3 million. The rest of it, a little over 1 million, was estimated to be in excess revenue collected. So revenue collected more than what was budgeted for. So those are the components that make up the cash carryover. The reason it dropped down to 5 million is because the biggest part was revenue. So I had projected revenues higher than what they came in at May. And part of that, I know a big chunk of it, I just talked to Rob this morning and I talked to him previously. After I did my first cash carryover projection, after I did the first one, but before I did the second one, which kind of explains where we see the big revenue decrease, is he had told me about a bankruptcy and that we weren't going to collect roughly $720,000 in May. That was we were supposed to collect, but because of the bankruptcy, we have not yet collected it.
Yeah.
So there's a good potential that we will collect it in the future, but it just wasn't collected in May. So that was a big chunk of it. I think it was about 1.26 million, if I remember correctly. The revenues were lower than estimated for May. And then a part of it was just the expenditures were a little bit higher. So not much, because it went down about 1.4 and about 1.26 was the revenues. But hopefully June's numbers will be more accurate. The big thing that makes up the June numbers is the PILT. So we'll see where we are in PILT. I do think sales tax will be down a little bit still. So that will hurt, but I'm hoping we'll make it up in the expenditures not being quite as low, because we do cut off the POs early in June. So hopefully the expenditures won't be too high in June, and that will compensate for the lower revenues. So I'm hoping the 5 million is fairly accurate. Usually with cash carryover, it usually ends up being higher than the projection. This might be the first year it's not. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. And I would, my explanation for that question to my fellow commissioners, I guess, is we are concerned about revenue decreases in the coming year, but with this cash carryover, it looks as though we've had wise spending for the bulk of it. And there's not a lot of reason to believe that wouldn't be the case next year of wise spending. So yeah, perhaps there's hope for some cushion next year as well of a cash carryover. That's the reason I'm asking, or that's the reason I asked. So
there could be on what we do with the budgets. So if the budgets are cut further to more accurately reflect what's been done historically, as far as budgets go, then there should be cash carryovers. If some of the budgets are looked at a little closer and reduced based on they've historically had big cash carryovers, then we may be looking at smaller cash carryover figures. If the commission decides to be aggressive with the revenues and be really optimistic with the revenues and budget a little bit higher, which the commission can do, the commission can increase the revenue budgets if they are optimistic. And say the numbers don't come in as high as those optimistic numbers, then the worst thing that's going to happen is it's going to lower the cash carryover for next year.
Thank you. Perfect.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Berry?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
Bonnie, you make the statement when you're talking to Rob that bankruptcy, that $700,000, I think was the number, will be recovered at some future date. Is that what you said? And if so, when?
Hopefully it will be. My understanding is that the county usually wins these cases and that the tax is eventually collected. It's just not collected right away.
But you don't have any idea when that might happen?
No, it's all about the courts, and when it gets paid, it's just a future date.
It's another problem.
Hopefully next fiscal year would be fabulous, but.
Mr. Chairman, this is Rob.
Oh, good. Rob can answer.
With respect to that, as we had talked 2 weeks ago, when we got the information on this bankruptcy, Southland actually sent a letter to us requesting that we stop the accrual of interest on this second half payment. So we had talked about that at that point in time. We've been in contact with our bankruptcy attorney on that. But in that letter, they referenced that their intent is to pay that tax at the point in time where their bankruptcy is resolved. And they alluded to the fact they believed it would probably be December of this year was what their thinking was. So I don't think it would be before that, but I think they were hopeful that that would be the case. And once again, they stated that they would like to and they intend to pay that tax. There's no guarantee that they will do that.
Thank you, Rob. Deputy County Attorney John DeLeon, do you have anything to add to that?
The only thing that I agree with Rob that they've said that they will, they intend on paying that. But as he stated, that's there's nothing in writing that's saying that that'll be done yet. So no, I think that it has yet to be determined.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions for Bonnie before we get going? Before we get going, I would like to, again, secondly, welcome everybody here. The way things look today, look a whole lot different than they did the middle of February, 1st of March. And the way they look today is not better. What they look like today is there are some severe adjustments in budgets throughout the state, throughout the counties, because of the revenue being down. We know for a fact that our sales tax revenue will be down. We talked about that earlier in the meeting with some projections. And the numbers that I gave out early in the meeting, Commissioner Smith reminded me that as I was giving those numbers out, there was an update sent from WCCA, and I had an opportunity to look at that data quickly. And even on the pessimistic, optimistic projections, those numbers that were sent earlier today showed deeper cuts in revenue than what I talked about earlier. So we're in this. Also, we take a look at what's happening in the industry world with oil and gas, down around $30 a barrel. At one time was at zero. We take a look at what's happening with coal. We also take a look at our trona industry. Trona industry, according to our conversations, is their production is cut down to nearly 25%, sometimes 30 right now, which equates to lost revenue not only to the state but to the county. We are here today to look at your budget requests, and I'm only one commissioner, but budgets are very bleak, and we're going to ask everybody to play as a team. As we move forward and we look to finishing up this budget session, I think we truly have to be somewhat aware of the future. And in industry, they're talking 6 to 8 quarters to recover. The state is saying revenues, projections are out there for 2 years. And that type of thing. I know we constantly talk about, and Commissioner Johnson, you can say more if you wish, but you know, the state does have other accounts out there. I reference as rainy day accounts, and you know, we're hoping that that'll free some things up. Some of you will receive funding through COVID because you qualify for some of the CARES Act money that came out. And I'm only one commissioner, but my true desire is that you get as much of that as you can, and go easy on the county, because we're just, it's just, as Bonnie shared with the numbers, they're real. Next year isn't going to be any better. And the best way I can say that is, as we finish up today, our outside agencies really need to be looking as to where they can generate funding, because next year, as much as this year could be, is realistic looking at cuts in budgets through our outside agencies. Next year is going to, is looking like it could be the same, and the severity could be even more so than this year. So I want to share that with you. We're going to look at everything. We're going to ask questions. The day may, I hope it doesn't take longer than what we planned for, but it just may. But we have to look at everything and make sure that we are also minimizing the impact of what we may have to do to balance our budget. In other words, coming out of our reserves, if that's what the commission decides to do. At this point in time, the commission has not, on a consensus basis or official business, determined if they're going to use the carryover or part of it. or even desiring to go into the reserves. So that has not been a decision that's been totally made. So I'll just share that with you. So with that, commissioners, any other comments before we start with our first outside agency? I'm kind of looking at microphones and seeing if any commissioners turn theirs off. Okay, with that, Bonnie, we will start with our first outside agency, and that's Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Please, all of you, when you come on, introduce yourselves and who you have with you. So first up, Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Alrighty. Well, thank you guys for the opportunity to share a little bit about Big Brothers Big Sisters and what we're doing in your community. We really appreciate your time and recognize that these are challenging times for everyone. So there's a lot on the docket, and we certainly appreciate you giving us a little bit of time to share with you today. My name is Hannah Eslinger, and I am the Director of Development at Big Brothers Big Sisters of Wyoming. And I am joined here by the local Sweetwater crew. We have Jennifer Kane, and she is the Director of Community Engagement here in Sweetwater County. And we also have Kale Lyman, who is our Case Manager for Sweetwater County. These ladies have been with us since the end of last year, and they're really working hard to increase the services being provided to this community and to maximize the positive impact on local youth and families. So we're really thrilled to have them on board with us and really excited for things to start really taking off in this community. I'm sure most of you are pretty familiar with Big Brothers Big Sisters, but for those of you who might not be, our mission is to create and support one-to-one mentoring relationships that ignite the power and promise of youth. At Big Brothers Big Sisters, we know that every child is filled with unique and unending potential, and that sometimes all it takes to ignite that potential is the knowledge that someone is in their corner. Our goal as an organization is to make sure that every child has that opportunity and is able to find the path that leads to their biggest possible future. What makes mentoring a really valuable and almost kind of a magical thing is that because we are not focused on one specific area of development or one specific risk factor in a child's life, we're able to address the needs of each child and each family individually and step in and fill any gaps that might exist when they come to us or that might develop over the time that we are working with a family. So along with our partners and families and volunteers, we hold ourselves accountable for each kid in our programming, improving their grades, their educational expectations, their scholastic competency, their levels of social acceptance, their ability to have a special adult relationship outside of their family that's somebody that they can lean on, their level of parental trust, and improving their attitudes towards risky behaviors. These are the areas that the research shows us that really matter in terms of positive long-term outcomes, including high school graduation, college readiness, college graduation, positive community engagement into their future, reduced risky behavior, and reduced levels of violence. Independent national studies show us that children in positive mentoring relationships are 46% less likely to start using illegal drugs, 27% less likely to start using alcohol, 52% less likely to skip school, a third less likely to hit another person, and far more likely to get along with their families and their peers. They also tend to show higher levels of engagement in the classroom and outside the classroom, be more open to trying new things, and have higher levels of self-actualization and bigger goals for their future. So when you invest in one-to-one mentoring programs, you really end up getting a lot of bang for your buck. The research shows that positive mentoring has lasting positive impacts on young people and really does help set them up to achieve incredible things and to go on to be wonderful community-minded, successful adults. So to speak to how these programs are currently impacting the Sweetwater community at home, I'm going to turn it over to Kale for a minute here.
Hi, so Big Brothers Big Sisters currently has several matches within Sweetwater County, and we're enrolling several more. The participants in the program often build lifelong meaningful relationships, and not only do our volunteers foster positive adult relationships with our littles, they provide support to our littles' families, especially in the past year. Each child in our program has been impacted by extremely difficult situations that include domestic violence, food insecurity, economic hardships, and the death of family members. Each big has been able to help these kids navigate these turbulent times, supporting them and guiding them to stay on course no matter the circumstances in their lives. The bigs have been and continue to be a constant system of support when these kids need it most. We know that the program is helping our current clients, but we also know that one-on-one mentoring has impacted our bigs too. In fact, one of our current bigs in Sweetwater County was once a little in the program. Big Brothers Big Sisters has made such a difference for him then, and he now volunteers his time to provide that same positive relationship to another child in our county.
Thank you.
I'm
Would
sorry.
you please, Bonnie, I'm going to turn the budget over to you now, and we can work through this with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, please.
Okay.
Was Joanna finished there?
Oh, I'm
Talking.
sorry. Did I interrupt?
Oh,
I
I
did.
was just gonna let Jen talk about some of the ways that we are evolving and working on our recruitment in the current situation, which obviously all of us have been hit with some pretty significant obstacles, and just some of the ways that we are exploring to continue to support the families that are in this community. If you've got time for just a minute.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, Jen, go ahead.
So when we started our new team here in Sweetwater County, a lot of the matches were really excited to get together again and be able to socialize, not only with their match, but as a whole group. With COVID, the new normal has been difficult, but we are still finding ways for matches to engage virtually. There has been a lot of brainstorming with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and a lot of people are excited to volunteer and be a part of the program. People are in desperate need for connection, and it will be valuable for our community. As we move forward with so many still needing socialization and emotional support, we are actively working on recruitment because the need is increasing, and we are ready to grow and serve the community. We're really excited to do this because we've seen how successful we are becoming with our matches and how much interest the organization has sparked in the community, and everybody wanting to be involved. Again, we're excited for the future and the opportunity to grow, and we want Big Brothers, Big Sisters to be a pillar for Sweetwater County.
All right.
So we'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Any questions, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Bonnie, go ahead. Or no, Lauren, I'm sorry. Commissioner Sheffield.
I don't know if Jen or if Kale would like to answer this, but how many matches do you have in Sweetwater County currently?
There is 8 matches, so it's a total of 16, but we have so many that have already gone through the interview process, but understand that it can take up a year to form a match because we want it to be successful and where it's a lifelong match.
We had several people in the we call them ready to be matched when they've been through the process, and they're enrolled and actively looking for the right big. We have a lot of people that are currently in that queue, and when COVID hit, we had to make some adjustments in how we were able to meet together and the ways that we were able to connect. So we do have a lot of people in the works getting ready to be matched.
Thank you.
How many?
Jen, do you
I'm screening 4 kids, and I think I have 5 bigs that are screening right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? I believe, Bonnie, go ahead. What was their request?
The request was $12,000. That is the same amount that was budgeted last year. And prior to that, I don't believe Big Brothers, Big Sisters had been funded.
I don't believe they have either. So I guess, you know, as we do with all of many, any questions with this one, commissioners?
No, I guess, Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Sure.
All right. Hey, first of all, Cal, Jennifer, and Joanna, thank you very much for the work you do in our community. It's very much thank you and appreciated. And know as we go through this difficult process, if we have to pull back some of the funding, it has nothing to do with the quality of work or the work you do. We're just currently at about 9.4, a little over $9 million. over budget. One thing I would point out that every agency that is here today were agencies that didn't cut back at least 5%. So I can tell you all the entities that aren't presenting today did take at least a 5% cut to their original recommendation. So just know that that might be possible, and it is a great possibility as we go through this process. But please know that it has nothing to do with the reflection of year 3 or the work or the value you provide in the community.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate that. And we certainly understand that there's a lot of really worthy, really important programs. And, you know, there's always higher levels of need that can't always be addressed. So we certainly appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? So quick question, commissioners, are you okay with the $12,000 request, or do you wish to, as Commissioner Lloyd brought up, look at, you know, we sent out that appeared to be a 5% decrease, but we know in our revenues in the county, it's far greater than that. Your thoughts?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Shanefield.
I would prefer moving forward that we hear from all of the entities before we look at where we're going to make cuts and where we're going to make adjustments and things like that. Just because I think it does affect all of them as a whole.
Sure. Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I think I go with Roy. What Roy's saying is if the ones that have come in and cut 5%, I'm okay with them. They're the same as they were last year, but if to be consistent, I think a 5% cut would be all right with me.
Commissioners, any other thoughts?
Yeah, and I would, once again, I get to put it on a calendar that Commissioner Johnson and I agreed on something. I always enjoy putting that on a calendar when we agree, but they, I would put out there that even though we may say 5%, as we evaluate this, we may have to go a little deeper into some of those budgets too. So know that that just could be a preliminary number in my opinion.
All right, thank you.
Because like Commissioner Shanefield said, as we go through the rest, we may have to look at other options.
Exactly. Yeah, because that type of thing. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I think everybody's here for a reason today, and that's because we saw an increase or a stagnant with their requests. So, yeah, I mean, $12,600 reduction, you know, it's not going to save us the 9.3 million, but again, consistency is probably the name of the game here.
So I hear, and I sense the consensus of the group is to do a 5%. So cut on over this same amount from last year. So did you get that, Bonnie?
So you want to decrease it by 5%, so $600, is that correct?
That's what I'm hearing the other commissioners say. I know Lauren's thinking something else. We may have to come back and see what we did, Lauren, and if there's any thoughts, okay?
And I think for me, Chairman Wendling, that can be our initial thought, but we have to keep it on the table that there may be potential for more. I hate to say it, but it's just being honest.
Yeah.
And we're not talking final here. We're talking initial.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Jeff.
Well, and I think, Mr. Chairman, I've heard some feedback around the process from last year, and I obviously wasn't here last year, but in that there were agencies that took what was said in these budget sessions over discussion as, okay, we're going to get this amount. And then, you know, they either did get that amount or they didn't. And so I think there's some confusion with that. And I think our purpose today is to ask these, you know, entities if we have any questions, things like that. But we're certainly not here to make any decisions on final decisions around the budget yet, being as this is quite a process.
But I would say, Mr. Chairman, this is an initial process, though. So I think we need to walk out of here today with some idea of where we're at. I mean, this is what we did 2 weeks ago was, as we discussed as we went along, what we thought we could do. And I think we should probably continue that. And then there's likely going to be more after this. But so, yeah, to all the entities out there, be clear, this is not the number. You'll get a final budget later, but it's not final until it's voted on and approved. So hang tight and see what happens down the road. But I think as it being a workshop, we need to work through it and come up with numbers as we go along. So yeah, be careful out there. Don't take this as the gospel truth.
Very good. Okay. Yeah, I'm hearing that, you know, and I sense what Lauren's saying as well. And I think if we work through it and we just ask these people, you know, 5%, can you take $600? And if they can't, they need to say why, and then we can take that into consideration. But we're still looking for $9 million and or any share of that. So I'm still hearing a consensus of you know, let's ask everybody to take a 5% look from what they gave us last year, and we can look at that. And if there's a sense that we need to change it, we can do that to the plus or the minus is what I'm hearing. So any concern about that? Okay, Bonnie, we'll do that. Joanna, we'll anticipate a $600 less for you guys.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, we appreciate it. Any other questions for Big Brothers, Big Sisters? All right, thank you.
Thank you. And if you have any further questions down the road, please don't hesitate to reach out. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate yours too. Okay,
Thank you.
Bonnie.
The next one we have up is Boys and Girls Club of Sweetwater County. Their request is $60,000. The amount of the budget last year is $48,600. So that is a 23.46% increase, $11,400 increase.
Hi,
Thank you.
Lisa Stewart. I'm the director of the Boys and Girls Club. Along with me, is that my turn? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Matt McBurnett, he's the president of our chair. We thank you for having our time and being supportive of our club for many years. When our ask was given, we didn't understand as well as anybody did what these unprecedented times would look like for many. We were seeing 120 kids a day. Our last day was March 13th. We had not seen any kids since then from the mandate sent down from the governor. We are looking to start up with our kids next Monday at 45% of what we usually see, because we need to follow strict guidelines to make sure that our kids are safe, as well as our staff and all of our families. We will start out with 66 kids on Monday, showing with social distancing, making sure we're 6 feet apart, limit the kids, feeding the kids in the rooms. It's taken us quite a few weeks to get in there and redo our rooms and make sure that we can be safe and sanitary. What we'd like to start out with, Matt and I just had a discussion quickly, is we would like to be respectful and go down to the ask of $46,170, which would be, I believe, if I'm correct, which hopefully I am, so don't quote me, 5% from what we received last year of the $48,600.
So what was that final amount, Lisa?
Well, hey, Bonnie, help me so I don't get it wrong. I'm thinking it was 46,170. Is that correct?
Let me calculate it.
Whatever it is, she's got the right idea, and I support what she just said.
46,170.
Sometimes I get that wrong when I'm in a hurry, so.
Nice job, Lisa. Perfect.
Thank you. We feel that that is just what we need to do. Again, unprecedented times. It's crazy. It's sad. We don't feel like we're out of it. We don't feel like our parents are out of it. We're doing the best that we can to serve essentials on our list as mandated, and those who need us the most as our mission. We do appreciate everything that you do, and we would be very thankful to receive that amount and appreciate your time and support.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other comments for Lisa, commissioners? Not any. I have one final one, Lisa, and I'll ask this of everybody, and I know Big Brothers and Big Sisters got off already, but as we move into this next year, are you guys starting to look for other avenues of funding for next year? Because we'll probably be back again at this, if not more, Lisa.
And we totally understand that. We see that. I mean, I can let you know that it's going to be hard for from the state to the county to the city down to businesses, and the nonprofits are going to feel it very hard. I can let you know that 2 weeks ago, I received 2 phone calls that we lost a quarter of our funding.
Wow.
In 2 phone calls. That's huge. And with only going down to 40% of the membership, which we don't charge that much anyway, but by reducing our membership by 60%, again, we're going to take another cut, just depending on, what's going out there. Because we do want to be safe, again, for everyone, but we want to serve who we can. So nonprofits are we're going to see it like you guys do. And we'll just keep looking at what we can to make sure we can serve those who need us.
Lisa, one other question is, are you going to get any CARES Act money?
So the new CARES Act that came through Wyoming, I received an email this morning that the nonprofits weren't talked about in that. We did get the PPP money, which definitely made it so that when we open up with the same staff who know what's going on, who, are confident in what they do. And by getting that PPP money, it made a big difference for us to get to where we are right now. But we are into utilizing that. It's, most nonprofits, if they got it in April, we're almost done with it. And so it'd be nice if they would send that out again. That would make a big difference for us. But if we're like many of the nonprofits or businesses themselves, those dollars will be running out.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Appreciate it and appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners got any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bonnie, you're up.
Okay, so do you want me to go ahead and reduce that one then to 46,170? Is that the plan?
Please.
Okay, I have that plugged in. All right, the next up is Castle Rock Hospital District. The request is $348,000. This is a 15.61% increase. Dollar amount of the increase is $47,000.
I believe this is for ambulance service, is it not, Bailey?
Yes, sir. This is for Castle Rock Ambulance Service. I do have Bob Gordon and Todd Toolson are here with me today. Bob is our board chair and Todd is our CFO. As you all know, this subsidy request is based off of a couple of key assumptions. In the past, the commissioners have asked us to align our budget requests with that of Sweetwater Medics in Rock Springs. And that's what we did. We're assuming that Sweetwater Medics is asking for $593,000. And given our call volume compared to Sweetwater Medics, that puts us at a per call subsidy of a little over $240. So our annual request last year, although we are asking for an increase, part of that, if you remember correctly, Sweetwater Medics did increase their request to you all last year as well. So this just reflects our assumption of what Sweetwater Medics is going to be getting from you this upcoming fiscal year. And I understand everybody's budgets are tight and everyone is tightening their belt to try to work within the confines of decreased revenue. We at the hospital district are certainly not experiencing anything different than anyone else. But as you know, we have experienced a big downturn in our revenue as well. And, obviously increased expenses and requirements for healthcare providers to be out of work on paid sick time that we weren't necessarily planning for. So, any amount of money that the commissioners can give us is certainly appreciated. And I understand other people are cutting their budgets to accommodate what the commissioners are being handed in their revenue as well. So we really do appreciate your help. We understand over the years that the commissioners have increased their subsidy for us. Last year, you gave us $301,000. Nowhere along the way were all of the losses on the ambulance made up. So when it comes down to, how much money we need, we can always take more since the tax levy that the hospital district does go to subsidize the ambulance service losses. Anything that the commissioners don't make up, the hospital district makes up with the tax levy. So like I said, this is completely based off of what Sweetwater Medics, our assumption that Sweetwater Medics is asking for. And again, we don't fully know what that request is. So yeah, if Todd and Bob have anything to add, I'd appreciate your input now too.
Todd or Bob? No?
Yes, I'm here.
Anything to add?
Pardon me?
Anything to add?
No, I don't think there's anything to add to what Bailey's covered. I'd just be wasting your time.
Bailey, let me share with you, we know that this is directly tied to the contract we have with the 2 ambulance services. And so what we would like to do is schedule a meeting. Marty's going to get a hold of you and schedule a meeting where we can sit down and talk about ambulance service and that type of thing, rather than have that discussion right now.
Absolutely. I just got an email from Miss Marty, so I can respond.
Right, so we're not ditching you or anything like that.
Sure.
We're just going to hold tough with this particular budget request and sit down and visit, because of the different options for the ambulances. We need to sit with you guys privately and have a conversation. Okay.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
So I'm not going to make any suggestions at this point in time. I don't know any other commissioners, or John, you're on our county attorney. Anything to add?
I think that that meeting should be set hopefully for tomorrow. I think Bailey, and so perhaps Mr. Gordon, Mr. Toulson may also want all 3 of you to participate.
I think the email that she sent me is for Thursday.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay. Well, we'll look at it and get it right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Bailey. Thank you, Robert and Todd. Thank you for being on. Okay.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Bonnie?
So just leave that one the same? Is that the
Just
where
leave
we are
that.
right now?
Yeah,
I
just
disagree,
leave that.
Mr. Chairman. I disagree with that. I disagree with that.
Okay.
But just to be consistent, I think we should give them 95 in this budget setup, so we know where we're at. I think we should set theirs at 95% of what we gave them last year, and that keep the contract. We'll come back and revisit that, just like we said with the others. Just let's cut it 95% of what they asked for last year.
Okay. Commissioners, Jeff, Roy, Lauren?
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Commissioner Johnson.
Okay. Roy?
We can stay consistent, but I know that number could alter based upon the negotiations tomorrow. So.
Okay, Jeff?
Agreed.
Okay, I agree. Good catch, Commissioner Johnson. Thank you. So Bonnie, you got the new figure?
Okay, so 285,950.
Yep.
Okay. Next up is Family Resources. Their request is 60,000. The previous year is 58,000. So this is a 3.45% increase, a $2,000 increase.
Okay.
Okay, Sherry West with Sweetwater Family Resource. I'm the administrative director, and I am here with Kim May. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're good.
No? Okay. And she is our case management director. And I think I want to start off by saying I think we want to drop our request as well to $50,000, which I believe is an 8% decrease. I know things are super tough with everybody, and I think we were hopeful that things would get better in several months, and we all know that that's not the case. We've lost a couple of full-time employees this last year, and we did not replace them. So we are just running on a shoestring budget at the moment. At this point in time, we don't have any plans to replace them. So I think we'll be fine with a little bit lower budget. We are getting some care funding. However, that doesn't provide, it's great resource for the community, helps us pay for some people that are affected by COVID who have lost their job, can't pay their rent, you know, gets them some emergency food, some utility assistance, but it doesn't help with any overhead or admin costs whatsoever. So I would like to reduce it to 50,000 as far as our request goes. And any questions, guys? Because kind of been around for a long time. I can tell you what all we do, but you ask me, I'll tell you.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sherry, do you have any, I mean, with 31 days cash on hand, that's, you're pretty tight there. And we appreciate going to 8. We're only asking 5. I mean, would that extra 1,800 be a, you know, something that would keep you open or make that big of a difference for you?
You know, I will gladly take 5. I'm willing to go down to 8. And I'm right now with some of the care funding, and we've tapped into a couple of other little funds that have really helped us out. United Way turned us on to them. So that has helped increase about 11,000 and some odd dollars, which was really helpful. So I feel like we can kind of make up that difference if we need to. Guaranteed, we're running on a shoestring, but so is everybody else right now. And also with the oil field and the mines doing these voluntary layoffs and everything else that's going on in the community, we're seeing more people wanting help with rent and utilities. So it's not that there's not a need, for sure. It's there and it's real, but we can use CARES funding to meet those needs and try to use Sweetwater County funding to, 1, keep the doors open, and 2, fill any gaps that some of these other grants, the loopholes in them. I mean, if you fall through, you were already, maybe you didn't have a job before the whole COVID thing, so now you're not gonna, you know, be eligible for those COVID funding, but you really just need a one-time quick fix Band-Aid, which is pretty much what we do, or, you know, a couple nights in a hotel just to get you by until you can move on. Sweetwater County's definitely helped in the past with that immensely. You know, we appreciate everything you guys have done. We appreciate the funding. It has kept our doors open, and we'll just run on a shoestring like everybody else is doing.
Okay, thank you.
And I realize our small cut doesn't even touch the 9 million, but you know, we'll do what we can do.
Well,
But it is appreciated.
Commissioner Lloyd?
I just want to say it is appreciated from your organization. Thank you so much for being understanding in the work you do in our community.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners' comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I agree with what Jeff said. I think it should be 5% of 95% of what we gave them last year.
Okay. All righty. Any other comments, commissioners? Just stay with the 5%. So have some avenues, yeah, and that type of thing. And we'll go from there. I appreciate, Sherry, though, that you stepping up and willing to do that. Who knows? We may come back to you or not. But thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Any
it.
other questions? Okay, Bonnie. Thank you, Sherry.
So are we doing a 5% reduction or a $10,000 reduction?
Just do the 5.
5%? Okay.
Come on, Bonnie, stay up with us here. Come on now.
Sorry, I heard both. So
Yeah,
I wasn't sure which one to go with.
Well, you heard what I said, and that's really what's important. So come on.
Oh, and there's 5 commissioners and they say different things. Sometimes I don't know which one to listen to.
Listen to me. If not, listen to, I don't know who.
Okay, so we'll do a 5% reduction there. Next up is food bank. The request is $20,845. This is an increase of 5.04%, a $1,000 increase, and the county has historically provided this funding for the director's health insurance.
Bonnie, do we pay all of the health insurance?
I believe we just pay the employer's portion. I believe the employee pays a portion, but that could be something you ask Kathy because I'm not 100% sure.
Kathy on?
Hello.
Hi, there you are.
Hi.
Hi, Kathy.
I'm here. I'm Kathy Seiler. I'm the Executive Director of Food Bank of Sweetwater County. And yes, we do ask for an in-kind donation of health insurance. And that is for myself. I'm a full-time employee. There is one other full-time employee, but she has declined the insurance. And that has to do with her husband has insurance. So I'm the only one that is covered under the insurance plan. And it is an in-kind donation. And so we did ask for an increase, and that was just projecting an increase in the cost of health insurance. And it's a 5% increase, but I did receive a letter from Brenda stating that they're anticipating an 8% increase in health insurance for 2021. But just to go over what the food bank does, I'm sure you guys are aware, but we distribute food twice a month in Green River and twice a month in Rock Springs. We also have made adjustments during the COVID. All of this time, we started out with social distancing, only allowing a few in the building at a time. And then we moved on to curbside drive-through. And we did that for the month of April. And now, and also part of May. And so we just started bringing it back inside with social distancing. And I have some April statistics. In April, our fiscal year total of people served was 5,219. And a year ago, it was 4,103 individuals at that time. And we distributed 490,146 pounds of food between July 1st and the end of April. And a year ago, it was 399,206. And we've done that with 5 employees, like I said, 2 full-time and 3 part-time, and 36 volunteers. And our volunteers put in 241 hours in April, a total of 2,950 hours during the fiscal year up to April.
Very good. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions?
Bonnie, could you tell me again what we gave them last year?
The last year amount was $19,845.
And their ask this year?
$20,845. So a $1,000 increase, 5.04% increase.
Is that total amount just for health insurance?
It is.
Yes. Kathy, Doc had asked whether or not you pay a portion for that. Is there an employee and an employer portion?
There is an employee portion that the employee pays. At this time, the food bank pays that for me.
The food bank pays the employee portion for you?
They are.
Oh, okay.
They've included that as a benefit.
Okay. I think that answers Doc's question.
Thank you. That answers the question. Thank you.
Still doesn't answer mine. What is the $1,000 for? What's that increase for?
For the increase in the cost of health insurance.
Does she know that for sure, that that's going to be $1,000?
No, it's projected to be 8%, and this is just a 5% increase.
It's a 5% increase to the entire budget, not just to, unless this entire budget is health insurance.
The entire request is health insurance.
Perfect. Thank you.
I don't have more questions.
No, that's a tough one because again, that's just cost going up. Yes, Roy?
This is a tough one, but we are holding everyone else to 5%.
Is the food bank able to pick up that increase, Kathy?
Well, you know, it's hard to say with the way the future holds. Right now, we seem to be doing okay. I mean, the community's been very generous, but I do expect our numbers to go up. You know, I believe that this COVID stuff will be increasing. It'll be coming back again during the flu season. That's what I'm anticipating. And I wouldn't be surprised to see our numbers go up and our costs go up.
Well, in reality, it's more like an 8 to 9% shift because it's 5% increase and we're asking everybody to take a 5% decrease.
Yes.
But we're talking about benefits.
Yes.
And if the food bank can pick it up, start picking up some of that share, that'd be great. You know, those increases, you know.
I say for the sake of inconsistency and really just for what it is, that we allow this one. That's my opinion, one of 5, but just because it's not it is just one expense. And that's, I didn't understand that previously.
Yeah. It's a fixed cost. I mean, it's not the arbitrarily it's a needed cost, which is the health insurance. It's not used for anything else. So how do you know, other than ask the employee to pick up more or the company? So would you guys agree that it stays? Lauren?
Mr. Chairman, I don't. I think that all of the other nonprofits that are asking for increases are also covering that potential 8% insurance, because unless they don't offer insurance to their employees, then that's going to be a cost across the board. And typically it's in between the 5 and 20% increase. And I know when I was at the YWCA, we built that in every single year. So if you're going to cut that or keep that here, then maybe we need to go back and look at keeping insurance costs or ensuring that that's not something that we're cutting from the other organizations that we're cutting. So I truly believe that at this point in time, we should look at the 5% across the board, like we said we were going to, or we're going to have to go back and look at some of the other insurance costs from the other organizations that we're cutting.
All right, so if we stay with that 5% across cuts from the amount from last year, it'd be 5% from the 19,845, which was last year's budget. Am I correct, Bonnie?
So if you take 5% off of last year's, I would put you at $18,852.75.
No.
Is that what you would like me to put in there?
Good. No, wait a minute. Before you do that, I go back one more column. Actuals for 219, 220. That's what's being spent up to this point in time that we've given them, right?
Right, and that number is probably from last month.
All right.
So it might be a little bit higher now.
Okay, it'd be a little higher. Okay, thank you. So
yes.
Yeah, you basically.
Just to let you know, this one's done a little bit differently than the other outside agencies. So it's paid directly for the health insurance. There's no voucher that is submitted by food bank to get this money. It goes directly to the health insurance. It's internal because food bank is on our health insurance plan.
Okay, commissioners, what's your pleasure here? So, I'm hearing staying with the 5%.
Voiced mine.
Huh?
Said I voiced mine previously.
Yeah. And the food bank will have to pick it up. Roy, you staying with that?
I wish I didn't have to, but I feel we need to stay consistent.
Okay, so, and I know Lauren's in that arena too, so that's a consensus. So I would say take it 5% back from the, if we're saying 5% cut, it's got to go back to the original amount for this year, which is 19,845, and then reduce it by 5%, because that's the way I do my math. Does anybody disagree?
I agree with you.
Okay. So Bonnie, it'll be 5% from the 19,845.
Okay, got it.
All right. And we're gonna, you know, go ahead. Roy?
Nothing, sorry.
Okay, very good. All righty. Okay, that's primarily where we're at, Kathy.
Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you.
All right, we were scheduled for a break. Do you want to just keep going, commissioners? Does anybody want to break?
Cut that by 5%.
Huh? Wally, I saw you.
Cut that by 5%.
Cut it 5%. Okay, here we go. 110, hospice. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Okay, the request for hospice is $80,000. The budget for last year was $75,000. This is a 6.67% increase, a $5,000 increase.
Okay.
Hi, this is Nicole Mandros from Hospice of Sweetwater County, and we have our board president, John Kennedy, here as well. Just a little bit of background as to why we requested more. I know in previous years we've cut more than what has been asked of us. We were having a tough year even before COVID-19 hit. We've noticed a real shift in some of the payers for hospice. Commercial insurances are sometimes not offering hospice coverage. We've noticed a big increase in uninsured clients. And so our mission is that we do not impose any burden on our patients, and we have never billed a patient or their family for any costs that exceed anything that we receive from their insurance. So we have noticed this trend over the last year of uninsured patients as well as insurance that is not covering hospice services. We were kind of already having a tough year, which is why we were requesting more funding. Prior to today's meeting, last week I was working on readjusting our budget, and I did reduce our amount by 5%, which seems like what is expected in this meeting today. So that amount would be $71,250. And I also just want to say thank you so much to you guys for your support of our organization. I know we, are housed in your guys' office building. We use your IT services, and we are just so pleased and very grateful and thankful for everything that you do and all of your support of our organization.
I echo that.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, John. You valuable service to the people of Sweetwater County, and time again, feedback comes back that families are really appreciative that you're there. John, you and I have talked before about a hospice and the model you're presently using for your patients, which is in-home as well as dedicated rooms and different care centers is an excellent model, and my understanding people are very appreciative of it. So we appreciate the work you've done, and Nicole, John, and the rest of your hospice community, and thank you for that. So with that, we will enter in $71,250 for your budget. And if you guys run short, rumor has it, John Kennedy will write you a donation check.
Don't know about that. It's tough times for everybody,
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Johnson. While you're muted.
When a person goes on to hospice and they've got Medicare, does any of the fees that hospice incurs paid by Medicare? Is that what's the relationship with the federal government on hospice charges?
Sure. So Medicare does cover hospice. What happens is somebody elects hospice services and we notify Medicare of that. And we're paid per diem, which means we receive a fixed amount every single day that a person is on hospice. And it equates to about $160 per day. And then we have to use that funding to cover all of the costs of a person's medications, any equipment that they might need, like hospital beds, oxygen, disposable supplies like Depends, gloves, wipes, a variety of different supplies that we take into the home. And so some people, that $160-ish a day covers all of their expenses, and some people it exceeds that. So it's just kind of trying to find a balance between some of the patients who have more needs versus those who have less needs. But it is just a per diem rate, and then we have to cover all of those different expenses using that funding.
And it's not a fixed amount for an individual that's covered that?
It's a fixed amount per day for everybody. So every single Medicare patient, we would receive about $160 per day for every day that they're on hospice. There's a little bit of extra for the first 60 days that they're on service, and then the rate reduces. So the average is about $160 per day, but it's the same rate for every Medicare patient for every day that they are on service, whether we see them once a day, once a week, whether we provide them with thousands of dollars worth of medications or hundreds of dollars worth of medications. It's the same fixed amount every day.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And I very, very much appreciate what you people do. It's just a great service to the community, and I recognize that. And I hope sometime we can build a building for you people. I think that's long overdue, and I think that's something that, of course, we can't do it now, but at some time in the future, I still think that's a good project for us to do. And then Reed West was the one that brought that up originally, and I really think he was right then, and he's still right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? All right, thank you very much, and thank you for what you do, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Okay. Good luck.
Thanks.
All right, so I changed that one to $71,250. Next up is Youth Home. The request is $162,810. That is the same amount as last year, so there's a 0% increase, $0 increase.
Okay. Where's our Youth Home representative?
David Thorne.
David, is he on? I don't see him. Well, to stay within line of what we're doing, I've reduced that one by 5% unless commissioners have any other comment.
I concur, Mr. Chairman.
I say 10 because they're not here and they can't say any different.
I think if you'd want to give them more money, Jeff.
Oh, that's a little digger. Nice job, Lauren. I see how you are.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to.
Bonnie, I don't know what 5% is.
So that would be $154,669.50. So I'll go ahead and put that amount in if everyone is okay with that.
Okay.
All right, next up is Ywca. The request is $295,296. That is the same amount as last year. So a 0% increase, $0 increase.
Okay. I see Melinda.
Hi, this is
here. There you are.
Yeah,
over in the corner.
Yeah, we hide over there. I don't know.
Welcome.
Me someplace. So I'm Melinda Boss with the Ywca. I'm the executive director. I have Kayla Manico and Cheryl Tarno behind me. We decided to do it this way for simplicity versus multiple logons. What questions you have. So I figured we'd start with a quick little update of where we are. The Y is open, and actually we were open all during COVID. We did not close. We moved from order to order from Governor Meade. Every time he issued an order, we were standing right next to the computer, writing down notes of how we could work our childcare, how we'd work our shelter. And so we still continue to work. Our office for CFC did not open for safety, but we met all our clients. We went to the hospitals, we went to police stations, we went to homes. Our childcare served essential workers all through. We dropped a lot in April because we could only serve the essential workers. So that dropped a lot of our revenue. We did get the Paycheck Protection Loan, which offered a lot of help for that, but that is ending this month. That allowed us to keep all of our staff on and keep us going through that. We are back to close to normal, though I have never taken my temperature so many times in my life. Up, down, where we are, who's at what. So our CFC keeps modifying how we manage a shelter, if we take in clients which have risk factors, how we isolate within a building. I will say our shelter went from 79 crisis calls in 1 month to 177. So we saw a dramatic increase in crisis calls. And I will say in our childcare, as soon as the governor got off the speech and the stage, we had parents calling going, so can we get back in? Can we get in? Do we still have a space? So it definitely tells me that these were services that were needed. And so when we were looking at our budgets, we originally put in our budget with the exact same amount as last year. You had granted us an slight increase from 2018, 2019 to allow our employees to have a cost of living increase, the first in over 2 years. And so we were hoping to save that. Though when we went through the budgets during COVID and started looking, we were also concerned of our other funding sources. We wanted to see where the state funding that we get for our domestic violence program landed. And because of cuts in there, we began looking again. So we are able to say, yes, we can certainly do the 5% cut. I mean, we'd love to go back to the level of 2018, 2019, which I believe was looking at the wrong line, 283,944, or a 5% cut, which was the 280. So those were the numbers we're certainly willing to do. We looked hard to try to make sure we could still offer the services we offer. We know it will probably mean a loss in staffing, but the key was if we could still survive with the services the community needs. If nothing else, COVID taught us how critical childcare is for the functioning of an economy, as well as the need for domestic violence. I mean, can you imagine being socially isolated in a house with the most dangerous person in your life? And so that's why we wanted to keep the services as much as possible. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions, commissioners? Mine's more of a statement than a question, Melinda, but the rise in violence that you guys had, primarily domestic violence, was...
We did have a few sexual assault calls that we came out. I don't know if the numbers went up, but I mean, the crisis calls went up. We didn't see an increase in shelter stays. We were kind of tossing it either way as to why. We thought part of it was people were just too scared to leave. I mean, as scary as the abusive home is, it's known. To move into a shelter where you don't know where it is, how you're going to move into a new house in an economy that's closed down and start all over when there's no jobs to get. That may be the reason the calls increased so dramatically, though most were domestic violence related.
Thank you. Other questions, commissioners? One other thing, Melinda, is I don't know if you were on when we started, but we know next year's not going to be any better. Are you guys looking for alternative funding sources to help you out? Because next year's cuts could be even more dramatic.
I will say that was certainly a task that Kayla had during much of COVID, was to start digging into grants and other funding sources. And we have additional fundraisers we've been looking at. We're doing a scavenger hunt later this month to help with that, because one of our big fundraisers had to close down just before. It got caught right at the edge. We just finished our bowl parties and then the governor announced we couldn't do the big event. So we've been looking at ways to do that, other grant funds, other fundraisers, donor pools, as well as building our endowment to attempt to make this possible, because we know the state is also talking funding cuts next year as well. So it's a continuous process we have, that is for sure.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate what you did do for us for this year. And Bonnie, did you get that amount?
So I have $280,531.20.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions for Melinda before she goes? All right. Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you guys do there.
And we appreciate the support of the county.
Thank you. Okay, Bonnie.
Next up is Young at Heart. The request is $307,500. This is a 3.83% increase and $11,356 increase.
Okay, is Ryan there? I see his name. Are you there, Ryan?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks for having me this afternoon. So we did ask for a slight increase this year, and I do recognize the difficult position that we're all in. So just a little bit of background, I think for the most part, you all understand a lot about what we do here at Young at Heart. So I won't go too in depth on that, but I do want to start with, we on the senior center side, we really truly are a county provider. The way it works in the state of Wyoming, each county has one senior center typically that is the recipient of certain grant funds to provide services. And so we are that recipient. So we serve Green River for a number of our in-home services, home health, special diet meals, as well as Rock Springs community. So we did ask for a slight increase. I want to highlight that included in our budget request is 65% of the utilities. So that comes out of the funding that we request. So it significantly drops the amount of actual funding that we have available to use to provide services. The reason for an increase is, as I stated, seniors ages 65 to 74 in Sweetwater County have increased by 32.2% from 2013 to 2017. Wyoming's the most rapidly aging state in the nation. Last fiscal year, we saw our home delivered meals and in-home services increase by about 20%. We're seeing a similar increase this year. So the demographic shift that is occurring in our county is absolutely incredible and is impacting us in a very significant way. So these are services that allow people to remain living in their own homes. They're significantly cheaper than the alternatives. And as far as social programs go, they've been proven to have huge successes. So they're really money-saving programs, which is going to be important in this time. And I'll just add that we got our federal Older Americans Act grant applications released, which are some of the biggest funding sources that we have. And there was an increase in all of those grant funds. So that's fantastic, and it recognizes the demographic shift and all that we're going to have to do to take care of those folks. Unfortunately, with a reduction in both fundraising, we've had to cancel fundraisers, and a reduction in local government funding, and a reduction in the amount that people can pay or contribute to support those services. I can almost guarantee that I'm going to have to give federal funds back this year, which is just absolutely unfortunate if we don't have those matching funds available to provide those grants. But I guess that's just kind of a basic rundown of why I put in that 3.8% increase. It's going to just barely take care of 60% of one program's increase that the increase occurred last year. It won't even touch the future increases, but I recognize where we're at, and we'll do what we can with what we get.
Thank you, Ryan. Commissioners, questions for Ryan? Okay, commissioners, your pleasure.
I look for the consistency again, Mr. Chairman. I think we take what we gave them last year, cut it by 5%.
So you would be looking at the 296,144, 5% permit.
Bonnie agrees, I agree.
A 5% cut would be 281,336.80.
I would concur with Commissioner Johnson and just throw out to Ryan that, you know, I've always been a supporter of your program and what you do. I know you do great things in that community, and hopefully we'll find some better times down the road. But unfortunately, I do agree that we need to be consistent with all our entities.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other commissioners have comment? Okay, without that, we'll leave it right there. And Ryan, we will reduce it by 5% as was mentioned. And my question is are you as an organization beginning to look at funding elsewhere, you know, finding funding for next year, because it's going to be an issue again next year?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always looking for funding opportunities. We've applied recently for some new grants that we haven't received and have gotten those. You know, again, unfortunately, with the demographic change, we're either going to have to turn folks away, which is, you know, difficult because it really does mean they're going to end up in an assisted living facility or nursing home, and which is, you know, no offense, Jeff, but
easy there. Come on now, Ryan.
But you know, it's going to be difficult. We're looking at so much of the population that we serve is at their limit on the contributions that they can make to the program. So it becomes tough, but we're looking.
Well, and we appreciate that a whole lot and appreciate what you do there for Young at Hearts, and always glad to be your liaison. But this is one time I don't know what else to do for you other than appreciate your work and hope you understand totally where we're at across the county.
Well, I certainly appreciate all the support you have given us over the years, and we'll do what we can.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
That? Yeah, you got that, Bonnie?
Yes, so I put in $281,336.80.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, David has joined our meeting from Youth Home. I didn't know if you wanted to go back.
Yeah, let's go back. Thank you, David, for coming in. Go ahead, and you might share with David what occurred.
Okay, to catch you up, David, this is where we are at. So the Youth Home requested $162,810. That's the same amount as last year, so a 0% increase, a $0 increase. The board has been reducing by 5% tentatively. So that is what was discussed with your budget.
Do you have any questions, David?
There we go. Okay, sorry. I apologize for joining a little bit late. No, I understand that, and hearing from a couple of the other agencies, totally understand that, and the financial situation we all find ourselves in across the board. You know, again, this is what it costs us to do business. The initial request and not increasing any money. The Youth Home took the advice of the county commission last year, where we had put in a request for a couple of increases with regards to a security system and another vehicle that we have to purchase to transport the kids to and from appointments, things like that. And instead we used some of our reserves, which are now more depleted, but we used our reserves for those things to pay for our security system, pay for the purchase of another vehicle, and took care of it that way. And that's why, again, we didn't make any kind of increase in our request. I do appreciate everything the county commission has done for the Youth Home over the years. And like I said, I know it's a tough situation financially for everybody. We're working currently with the State of Wyoming Department of Family Services and the legislature in order to try to see if we can secure any additional funds to help with the whole COVID-19 situation, and with regards of the impacts that it's had with the Youth Home financially. At one point we had to close one of the homes briefly because of quarantine and those kinds of things, and we're looking at how we can continue to take in kids and service kids, because we do have the two homes that majority of the time, probably 90% of the time, we run at capacity at both homes for the year, and that's at 10 children in each home, the one in Rock Springs and the one in Green River. So most of the time there's a little bit of a lull, usually around this time of year, and then right at the beginning of the school year we'll hit a little bit of a lull where we don't have quite as many kids. But most of the time we're running at 100%, sometimes even more than 100%, when we're looking at taking on additional crisis placements of children in the group homes. So that's kind of where we're at currently, looking at other funding sources as well, trying to see what we can procure to try to continue to operate at the level we need to, because again, we have certain state statutes and regulatory rules, I guess you would call them, through the Department of Family Services on how we provide our staffing, the required amount of staffing per child type of thing that we have to have in order to stay open and stay licensed with the state. So some of it, it's like we can't do without, but yet we got to come up with the money to be able to pay those staff so we have the required staffing. I'm open for any questions the commission has for me.
Questions, commissioners? Well, we certainly appreciate knowing the fact that you're continuing to look for additional funding sources. And I think if you've been following funding coming from the state and that type of thing, you can see, you know, we just parallel exactly where they're at, and their revenues go down, so do ours, and that type of thing. So, you know, we're all in this together. And I think, you know, if you've been following the state, that next year is being, you know, projected as worse for state revenue and worse for county revenue. So I certainly encourage you to continue to look for additional funding from out, you know, new sources, and wish you the very best of luck in that. And I do appreciate, as an old high school principal, the work that you guys do at the home with those students, because sometimes that's the saving place for our kids. And we know it, and we appreciate it very much. So thank you, David.
Thank you all. I appreciate your efforts and hard work in all of this too. It's got to be a struggle.
Thank you. All right, appreciate you coming on. Glad you could get on, and rather than miss us entirely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back. Bonnie, where were we?
Next up is Eden Valley Improvement District. Their request is $35,000. Last year they were funded at $32,500. So it's a 7.69% increase, a $2,500 increase.
Okay, who's on for Eden Valley? There we are.
Yeah, you got me. So my name's Dustin Eaton. I'm on the
Dustin. Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the Eden Valley Improvement Board, who oversee the Eden Valley Community Center. Our request for the $35,000 basically came straight from the numbers presented from the accountant, what it would take to make it through the year. I understand how difficult it is for the county right now, and I think if we could do the 32.5 that we got last year minus the 5%, I think we can make the difference up. We've been working with some other boards to see if they could help us out, and trying to find any other way we can come up with money to help fund Eden Valley Community Center. We do appreciate everything the county commissioners have done for us. You guys did step it up last year for the board. So if that's would help with the situation, we'd be happy with it.
Thank you, Dustin. Questions, commissioners?
Good to you like a champ, Dustin. Good job.
Dustin, this is Wally Johnson. Again, over the years, we've tried to help you, and appreciate your attitudes now, and we have to tighten our belts. That's just a great move for you. Appreciate it. Thank you for everything you do up there.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I can only echo it. I try to get up there once a month for a board meeting, and it's always a great great building to go into, what you guys have up there. So great asset. Yes, Lauren.
I would also like to echo what everyone else says. I think that you guys, growing up in Farson, you guys have done an incredible job of improving the community hall and everything else. So thank you for tightening your belt.
Thank you, Lauren. So Bonnie, did you get that?
I did. I changed it to $30,875, which is a 5% decrease from last year's $32,500 budget.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Dustin. Have a good day. Enjoy the good weather.
Okay.
Thank you. See ya. Be safe. Okay, it's scheduled break time. Should we plow on through, gentlemen and Lauren, commissioners?
We've actually got one more before the scheduled break.
Oh, we do, don't we?
Flaming Gorge
Okay.
Days.
Thank you, Bonnie, for keeping me straight.
Flaming Gorge Days, the request is $2,835. The budget last year was $2,835. So the request is a 0% increase, a $0 increase.
Did we get them their money this year? Did they even turn a voucher in for?
We did not put in a voucher yet this year. Since we had to cancel, I wasn't really sure how to handle that. And that would be part of kind of what we're looking at for next year. If it would be possible to still receive that $2,835 for this fiscal year, we would carry that over and perhaps ask for $2,000 for next year. That would give us a little bit of a kickstart to make up for this year. We're really trying to just rebuild that event. And part of what comes out of that event is we give to many community organizations, our youth groups. We utilize them for the wrestlers help us out with parking. The cheerleaders do some face painting for us. The swim team helps out. The parents help out with ticket sales and beer sales. So there's 4-H helps us with our stage. We give money to all of these groups, so they're all going to be hurting a little bit this year too for not receiving that funding from us. You know, it's a great community event and people really enjoy it, but we're trying to build it back to what it used to be. And we've made many cuts to our own budget over the last few years. We've stopped the bleeding. We're not losing money anymore, but we're not seeing a huge profit margin. So we just have to reinvest every year into the event. The more money we could start out with next year, the higher quality entertainment we could bring in, and then that would help increase our revenues. We are constantly searching for more sponsors. So like I said, if we would be able to carry over the money from this year that we haven't received yet, and then just add an additional $2,000 for next year, which would be a 29% decrease, that would actually give us a leg up and we would be in a pretty good position.
Commissioners, thank you very much, Jenny. I didn't see you over there when I started talking. I apologize. So
oh, that's okay.
Thank you. Commissioners?
I guess this one, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say a 5% decrease would be $26.95. You know, we've got, I know it's different circumstances, but Red Desert Roundup's it's been canceled, like Flaming Gorge Days, so they're not requesting anything. Jenny makes a good point. So I would be okay with a 5% reduction of, you know, going to $26.93 and some change. That would help them next year, unless you wanted to go to zero. That's not what I'm hearing.
Okay, Jeff or Roy?
You know, I struggle with this one. I have some great friends that serve on that committee, and they may not like me after we make these comments, but I struggle that we give the full amount for an event that ended up not happening and almost give just a 5% cut, because it's almost like they get double because part of that's going to an event that didn't happen. And so I don't know where I sit on this. I need to marinate here as we talk, but that's my struggle is I'd love to be able to give the Kickstarter, but we're kicking everyone back. And this event didn't even happen this year that we did fund. So I do feel like we're almost even giving them more because of that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Smith.
Could I ask Jenny, I'm guessing you still have expenses even though there wasn't an event this year, where there's some expenses incurred advertising beforehand or whatever it may be that happened, even though you didn't have the event and you generated $0, were there still some expenses?
There were still some expenses. We did commit to one of the performers. So, and that was a tough situation because we weren't necessarily ordered by the governor at that time to cancel, but we saw the writing on the walls and we were unable to seek the sponsorships we normally do because as businesses were closing, we didn't feel like we could go ask them for money. It was inappropriate, and we cherish those relationships. So we wanted to make sure that, you know, we didn't come knocking on the door when we know that everybody else was hurting too, so.
Thank you, Jenny. Bonnie, I got a question. We provide dollars for two events. One is the outside of the fair. One is the Red Desert Roundup, and the other one is Flaming Gorge Days. Is that correct? The only two?
That's correct.
Okay, out of Flaming Gorge, or out of Red Desert, they're next up, so it's easy for me to just look down. Am I correct that they vouched for their donation for this year and got that money?
So you must be looking at the preliminary packet. They have reduced their request to 0, so I did take them off.
Okay.
So they are actually not on the final agenda for today because they did reduce the request to 0 because the event was canceled.
Okay, yeah, because you're right. I still looked at the old one. You're so right. All righty, thank you. You answered that because they did get their money for this year, but they won't get it for next year. So to be consistent with Flaming Gorge, if they didn't get their money next year, what amount do we, or this year, what amount do we want to give them next year? And I'm hearing Jeff say 5% off of what's there. Is that correct? For Flaming Gorge?
Yeah, so just to kind of clarify, Red Desert got $8,100 this year. No, sorry. No, they got their 12. You're right. Yeah, they got their 12. Okay. Nope, you're good. I say fund them with 5% for consistency.
Okay. Roy?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
So because their request for the current fiscal year was already approved, I'm with Roy, and I think that some consistency, it would save them the 5% of being cut, but I believe that we should allow them to voucher for this year and then not fund them for next year. So they actually would get the full amount that was approved for this current fiscal year. But with the event being canceled, I mean, that's kind of a kickstart anyway that they would be able to put away, and it will be more than what they would have been cut if we chose to cut the 5%.
So going back to Red Desert, they got their full amount this year because they vouchered it, right, Monty?
Let me take a look. I am not sure because they're not on this.
Yeah, that's what's on their actuals for this year. For the
Okay.
1920 actuals.
If that's what's on their actuals, then yeah, I'm looking at the new one that doesn't have Red Desert on there. So I need to look in the system.
Well, yeah. So what you're saying, Lauren and Jeff, is you feel we should honor their request for this year, even though it didn't take place, and then similar to Red Desert, not honor a request for this next year's budget to vote out. Is that correct?
I believe that we should honor the request that was already approved for this current fiscal year and not fund anything for next year since the event was canceled this year.
Jeff? Your hands up. Well, Roy?
As much as I hate to, I'm going to go with Lauren. That's where I just think it's hard to justify that when we just cut the senior center really with what their increase was 9%.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Okay.
I believe they were already paid this year. If you look at the year-to-date actuals, it has $2,835 in there.
All right, so they were paid this year.
We
Yes,
were
and
not, we did not voucher this year yet.
If I remember correctly, what happened, and that's why I'm trying to get in the system to look. But I think what happened is I think last year the voucher came in June after the cutoff date. So I believe that was paid in July, which would have been this fiscal year. But I'm trying to get in to look at it right now to see if that is correct. Let me see when it was paid, because I do show a payment of $2,835 this fiscal year. See, it was paid. Looks like it was paid August 6th of 2019. $2,835.
So that came out of this fiscal year?
That came out of the fiscal year, fiscal year 20 budget.
So we actually didn't receive the money for the last fiscal year.
Right, fiscal year 19 shows the 0 balance.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then I would rather just, request the 5% decrease for next year then, because we technically haven't received any money. Because that was for last year.
I'd agree with that,
That's,
which is what I said earlier.
yeah, that's what you said. Well, it's a good thing we take the time to look, and Bonnie has the system right there to bring us all up to speed. And then I would say, Jenny, what appears to happen is you guys need to get your vouchers in a little sooner. You know,
Definitely.
so it doesn't cross over because, you know, then it appears it's a different fiscal year and everything.
Well, I guess maybe I could amend my opinion and say, Jenny, go ahead and voucher for this year and get your, well, no, because we paid it this fiscal year already.
Yeah.
Sorry, fiscal year.
Right.
All right.
To keep it moving along, that's similar to everything, is this year's request reduce it by 5%.
Okay, I can do that. And I did just double check Red Desert Roundup, and they did receive the $12,000 that they requested. They've already vouchered for that. So, and then they reduced their request for next fiscal year to 0.
All right, very good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just been listening to all this, and there's a couple things I'd like to comment on. I was really amazed that Royce thinks he's still got friends that, and he's a commissioner. He's been a commissioner now for quite a while. So you gotta get rid of that.
They're artificial, Wally. They're just like my wife.
And the other thing I'd say is I fully agree with the way that Jeff handled that. I think that and the function's a great function, and I think that cutting it 5% and giving that money for the coming budget is appropriate.
Great.
I would also rather stay in the cycle of requests instead of having a year where we get 0 and then have to come back and it look like, oh, it's a new thing. I would rather stay in that cycle. So I think it's beneficial to us either way.
You need to talk to the treasurer for that year, Jenny.
Because that'd be 2 out of 3 years you didn't get money, really.
Yeah. It's been a transition for sure with the restructuring we've gone through. So there's been some things have kind of fallen through the cracks, and some people were handling certain things and other people were doing other things. So we're getting our consistency down, and I want to make sure we don't miss out on any funding for sure.
Well, it would have really been nice to have the event this year and then see the end results and see how well your hard work would have paid off to even raise that bar of profit for you. But, you know, it was a sad thing when you couldn't have it. But thank you for hanging in there. Town of Green River, the county will appreciate the event next year if you're allowed to host it.
Thank you. We hope so.
Thank you, Jenny. Okay, anything else, Commissioner? Okay, now we can go on. We know Red Desert Roundup, they're 0, right, Bonnie?
Right. They were, they reduced their request to 0. So I took them off of the agenda. So for the final agenda, they're not on there.
Very good. Okay, so then the next one is Star.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
We have a break scheduled. So if you want to take a break, we can, or if you don't want to, we can be right on time.
It's up to the group. Short break?
I'm gonna break.
Yep. 10 minutes.
Judy, to be continued.
To be continued.
Okay. We'll wait for you.
Thanks.
Hey, it's good to see you, though.
Hey, nice seeing you.
Is Jeff back?
Yes, he is.
All right, I just don't have a full screen of the individuals, so as soon as Tim gets in there, he'll.
Probably a good choice not to have a full screen, eh? I had a little trouble. I went outside. I had a little trouble with the security getting back in. They don't want the wrong
Agreed.
door.
Okay, I'd like to welcome you back, and Bonnie, the break is over, so let's go on.
Okay, next up is Star. Their request is $131,100. That is the same amount as last year, so a 0% increase, $0 increase.
Good afternoon. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, commissioners. Good. It's Judy with Star Transit.
Yes,
and
Judy.
I've got Mary Seppi here. I am going to be retiring this year, and hopefully she's going to be taking my position. So I'm going to move the camera over to Mary and let her talk to you.
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, we're trying to socially distance. Well, it's nice to meet you all.
Hi, Mary. Pleased to meet you.
I know. Hi, nice to meet you. I know I've talked to a few of you, and of course, Commissioner Lloyd, is our liaison, so we've gotten to know him pretty well. So it's good to see you all, and it'll be better when we can all see you in person, but that's the way it is right now. I just wanted to say, we know you have a lot on your plate. You had a long day, and we appreciate your time. We also always appreciate your funding. So I know you've had a lot of difficult decisions. So I just wanted to let you know that we did have the $131,000 request, but we'd like to change this. We won't be requesting the first quarter of the billing, which was $32,775 for the 2021 year. We also are going to not request, or we're not going to ask you to fund us for this final quarter of the 2020 year by the $32,775. So the overall decrease that we're asking for is $65,550. And the reason behind that is we did receive some CARES funding, the pass-through through YDOT. And so we just feel like at this time, we weren't asking for an increase before, and we feel like with that CARES money, we can afford to flex these things because it was for the matching funds that we would bill you for. But we feel like that CARES money can offset this last quarter of 20 and then the first quarter of 2021.
Well, thank you very much.
It's amazing what a change in management really can happen so quickly.
You just keep that in mind, will you?
I credit
the future endeavors.
I credit it to the liaison, but that's just me.
But we just wanted to say thanks, and and we know we can do this, and we know you're in a tight position with a lot of people, so we figured this was our way to help out and do the best we can right now, and then in the future we'll have to do what we have to do there. So
very good. Well, thank you very much. And first of all, congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you, and you got your hands full to try and keep Commissioner Lloyd on the straight and narrow. So good luck.
Right?
Yeah. But if you need help, just call Commissioner Johnson. He'll help. So,
I just want to make sure that we note that they voluntarily cut their budget $65,000. So when we come back next year, we're playing them with that $131,000, concept that they've had year to year, rather than looking at it the 65. We want to make sure we note their kindness and don't punish them for it next year.
amnesia next year. Amnesia.
Not me, Mary. Did you deal up with me? I got you.
All right. Well, thank you guys, and I'm glad we could at least help out a little bit.
Oh my God.
We'll all get through this together.
You did wonderful. You must know many of our people, the Justin Grubb and Linda Akers, and so many more that are players, the people from hospice. You fit right in. You fit right in. With all of us. Thank you.
Well, thank you all.
All right. Have a good day. You got
all right,
that, Bonnie?
you too.
Okay, Mary, I just have a quick question. I just want to clarify. So the 32,775 is for next fiscal year. So for fiscal year 2021, and then you're just not going to request the 32,775 from the current fiscal year we're in right now. So I'm just going to
Correct,
reduce it
correct.
32,775. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly. So I
Right.
will reduce it
Yeah, we will not
32,775.
be billing out. Right.
And then, so that'll bring your
we
request.
won't bill out that fourth quarter.
Okay, so that'll bring it down to 98,325 for fiscal year 2021. Is that correct?
Sorry, we're doing some checks.
What was that?
You have
Is
a
that
back-
correct? The 98, sorry, you were cutting out a little bit. 98,325 for next fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I will put that in there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Judy, good luck. You'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner.
I hope so. I
All
hope
right.
I'm not wondering what I'm going to be doing. So thank you. Guys,
Thank
take care of yourselves.
You too.
Thanks, Judy, for everything
Thank
you've done for the county.
Yep.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been a privilege working with y'all. Thank you.
Okay, Bonnie, up next.
Okay, up next we have treatment court. The request is $9,000. Last year, the request was, or the amount awarded was $7,000. So it's an increase of 28.57%, an increase of $2,000.
Okay, thank you. And I think we have someone with treatment court here. Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself. Can't hear you. You're muted. You're still muted. Again. No, Augusta, we still can't hear
Chairman.
you, Augusta.
Chairman Wendling?
Yes. Teresa.
Yes, I'm also here with Ms. Davis regarding treatment court. Would you like me to try to
Sure.
fill you in?
Sure.
Since you can't hear her?
Sure.
I understand that previously we requested $2,000 less. The reason that Ms. Davis requested an additional $2,000 this year is we have more participants in our program than we have ever had since its inception. We currently, we know we are being funded by the state for 22 clients for this next fiscal year. However, we have at this time active 29 clients. So we know we have to try to make up that shortfall somewhere to continue to help as many people as we are helping. And so that is the reason that Ms. Davis put in for the additional $2,000. We were awarded a small stipend from the Episcopal Church to help us through the COVID-19 crisis in helping our clients. That money has basically run out. It's obviously with everybody else struggling, so are the treatment court participants as struggling to be able to pay rent and some of them to maintain their jobs. So that's the reason behind the additional $2,000 request. I do understand that you are making cuts, not adding to requests this year.
You're right. Nail right on the head. Good to put it any better than I could have on that one, Teresa. So
That was well done, Teresa.
yeah. So Teresa, are you voluntarily taking your 2,000 off plus a 5% cut?
Are we voluntarily? We understand. I mean, we do. We're just telling you why we requested what we did.
I know it. And
All untold, huh?
yeah. Commissioners, your thoughts? Anybody disagree? I think that's more of a tone of agreement than disagreement, Teresa. So unless I hear from the other commissioners, we'll go back to the 7,000 and do another 5%.
How could you possibly disagree with Teresa? She makes such a great case.
Well, I just, I just don't want to have to take her to court with me now. I might lose. You other four aren't saying a word because you know this, you're thinking the same thing I am.
We're smarter than that.
I put Roy in the hot seat before.
That's why he's not saying anything. He knows.
As a knowledgeable witness, not because I was on trial. Let's clarify this.
Whatever.
I helped your case.
Whatever. This sounds totally made up, Roy.
All right.
I know what, knowledgeable?
Teresa, I'm going to give those other commissioners a chance to disagree.
I'll just throw out, Teresa, unfortunately, I don't disagree because I think we have to be consistent and know your plight. And, we've talked about a lot of the issues that have come from COVID. And one of the issues that haven't really been discussed is an increase in mental health issues and also in drug and then those kind of family domestic issues that have come along as a side issue. And I'm glad you can help a larger number. And I just wish we were more fiscally able to help this year. But your efforts are really appreciated, and they don't fall on deaf shoulders here of what you do and the importance of your work.
Thank you, Commissioner Lloyd.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Shankville.
Teresa, unfortunately, I'm with Roy on this, but I also think if things start improving, there's always the option of coming back towards the end of the fiscal year, or, the middle of the fiscal year next year, for additional assistance. I know that you guys are probably, substance abuse rates are going up. There's going to be more activity throughout the criminal justice system. And I think that that's something we can look at later as well. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Shankville.
Other commissioners, any comments? Okay, Bonnie, did you get that?
I did. So I put in $6,650, which is a 5% reduction from the $7,000 last year.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Up next, we have the
Teresa.
airport.
Thank you.
Thank you for hearing from us.
Good afternoon, Devin.
Good afternoon. Chairman, Commissioners, is it all right to go ahead and proceed? Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Devin.
Okay. All right, Chairman, Commissioners, save the worst for the last here. Hopefully I can make it a little bit better on you by the time I'm done. The request that you received from the airport for $870,158 was our request based on what we knew on April 10th. I spoke with Bonnie, spoke with Jeff, spoke with Ywca, and just tried to figure out what we should do as an airport. April 10th was about 20 days in on the nightmare that we have been experiencing now for the last 2 months. We didn't know how deep it was going to hurt the airport. We had to turn in a budget. April 10th was the deadline. And so we turned in a budget on April 10th that was based on the worst case scenario that we could predict for the airport based on what we knew that day. I will tell you that since that time, we have been able to realize that the pain, while it has been severe, is not nearly as severe as we thought it was going to be. I will also tell you that we were recipients of the CARES Act money that you all also approved back, that was announced on April 14th. And we have not received that money yet, but we have approved the grant. We don't anticipate seeing that money until next fiscal year. I will also mention that as of the end of February this year, the airport was on pace for its best fiscal year on record that we have records of, at least. And we were anticipated to finish the fiscal year with our strategic goal accomplished of having 90 days cash on hand as an organization. Obviously, the COVID situation and the loss of revenues, the loss of passengers. Just to give you an example, in April, we had 64 employments, which was a 97% reduction over last April. In May, we had 179 passengers. So we saw over 100% increase, which is exciting. But unfortunately, when you're starting so low, it's not a good number. With all of that said, we are prepared to reduce our request to the county by $312,871, which would drop our request to $557,287, which is 5% below what we received from the county last year.
Wow.
You've redeemed yourself.
I figured I would. I do want to leave you with a little bit of a disclaimer with that. It cuts us bare bones. We have no flexibility. If there is additional losses of revenue because of a resurgence of COVID in the fall, or things get worse for some other reason than what we predicted, our budget's still based on a pretty gruesome outlook. But if it gets worse than that, I hope it doesn't, and I hope I don't have to. It could result in us having those conversations later in the fiscal year, but we're going to do everything we can to rebound as quickly as possible. Our initial budget that we turned into the city of Rock Springs back in February or early March was another 8% decrease in operating subsidy. We were continuing on our trend of reducing our operating subsidy to the airport pre-COVID. And I intend to get back there as quick as possible, especially understanding what the financial situation is looking like in fiscal years for the county and the city. So it's still our goal to get to no operating subsidy. We're going to be delayed from where we were, but we're going to get back as quick as we could. And I believe that's all I have. I will mention on an alternate subject. Some of you have had the opportunity to speak with yesterday and Friday afternoon regarding the terminal project. Those of you that have not heard from me, I will be reaching out to you in the coming days to give you an update based on some conversations we had with the FAA on Friday. It's pretty exciting news. So I just want to talk to you each individually about that, and then we'll be in touch with more details later.
Very good. Thank you, Devin. Comments, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I say kudos, Devin. Great work continuing to look for money elsewhere and controlling expenses as you can. I mean, there's no precedent for this. I mean, 64 people getting on a plane, it's pretty rough, but I'll fly in July. How's that sound? And I'll take my wife and 2 of my kids with me. So we'll try to help out the economy.
We also have plans to go out in July out of Rock Springs too. So we're going to help there. The one thing I would like to comment on, Devin, is being a joint powers board, and the way that joint powers agreement is written. You guys could walk in very bullishly and that type of thing, where we've had that happen before, and we would be expected to meet those demands. So I appreciate you as well as our other joint powers board that's come in and with a considerable less ask than started out with, and really make it pleasurable to work with, and do look forward to the exciting things that may or could go on out at your airport. One final question: what's your days? I just tried to pull it up quick, but what's your days cash on hand look like?
So with Mr. Chairman, with this change in reduction for next year, it will leave us with approximately 17 days cash on hand for next fiscal year. We were, like I said, on pace to have 90 days cash on hand. We have basically 2 weeks, which is going to take us back to where we were 5 years ago. And it's going to be very, very difficult in terms of cash flow. But we will do our best to make it work, and I guess hold payments where we need to hold payments and so forth.
Well, the only comment I can make to that is when you came in here 5 years ago, that's what you're up against, and you took it to another level. So you've been there and you've done it before, and you can do it again. And we appreciate, I do appreciate what you're doing out there, and how you've approached it, and how you're keeping us in the loop. So thank you, Devin. Other comments, commissioners?
I just want
I'd echo that, Mr. Chairman. That's well done, Devin. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Lloyd?
I'm just going to say the same thing. Devin, thank you, because this is huge. And you and I had talked about the budget already, and I appreciate you especially exploring the CARES Act. Because one thing Doc's been asking people, you know, where we can find other funding, and it really is awesome to see you out there digging and finding it. And so great work, and just keep us informed like you always do.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if I might, I do want to highlight that even with these cuts, thankfully, we're still pulling in a significant amount of grants this next year, almost $7 million of grants, which is going to allow us to accomplish an $8 million capital plan this next year, and that does not include the terminal. So we're going to be able to accomplish a significant capital plan, which will drive economic activity into our community. So pretty excited for that on top of the news I delivered today.
Well, you'll be the first, one of the first ones to notice that increase in economic activity. So you have a pretty good pulse out there because of the business you're in. So keep us informed, please. Those are always good things we need to know. Thank you, Devin. Commissioner, anything else?
Devin, you know you did well, because I saw Wally almost crack a smile at you. It was really close. There it is. There it is.
Hey, there's a first time for everything, I tell you.
Today's a good day. Journal entry day.
Journal entry day. Okay.
Dear diary, today commission meeting, Wally smiled at me.
Yes, there you go.
Oh, good.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay. Any other questions for Devin? Thank you, Devin. Did you get that number? Bonnie?
Yes, I did. So $557,287.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, with that, Bonnie, what's next?
Okay, so I just kind of want to give you an overview of where we're at. So let me share my screen with you. Find the right one. Here we go. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So when we started out, so this looks similar to page 1 of your, page 2 of your packet. So when we started out, our total shortfall was $9,353,465. With the decreases made today during the workshop, the total shortfall is at $8,860,012. Total shortfall, if we use the cash carryover, which I've updated to the roughly $5 million amount, it would be $3,869,187. So that's where we're at right now with the changes that have been made so far. Just to let you know, we do have one scheduled budget workshop left. It's in 2 weeks. And then we are scheduled to have the public hearing that following Thursday. So in 2 weeks and 2 days, that's when we are scheduled to have the public hearing and the adoption of the budget. I didn't know what you want me to do from right now. Do you want to discuss some of the budgets? Are we good with these numbers? I haven't had any recommendation from the commission about whether you want to use all of the cash carryover, whether you want to use reserves. So I guess now would be the time to let me know your input and what other changes you want to make and what you want to do going forward.
Bonnie and fellow commissioners, before we go on, I've got to get on my other computer for this because my Zoom is cutting out. My connection's getting worse. So Bonnie broke up and all of that. So just give me a second here.
Was everyone else able to hear me?
Sounded great.
You sounded great, Bonnie.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just mine. Just my internet connection.
Well, while we're waiting, I'll start the discussion of I don't think we have any much choice than to use the carryover, whatever it may be for this year. And we're still facing a significant shortfall. So that's my feelings as far as carryover goes this year anyway. May have other feelings other years, but this year it looks like tough times, and certainly that's what we need to do, I think. So I'll start it that way.
I'll follow up on that, Jeff. I think you're right on. What I think we should do is use the full carryover, get that down to 3 million, whatever that number was, and give direction to Bonnie at this point in time to take the balance out of reserves.
Mr. Chairman. He probably can't hear me. I agree with Commissioner Johnson. Bonnie, I also was wondering, I forgot to ask today throughout the whole thing. I remembered about halfway through, but I wanted to see how many, if any, jobs we would be cutting with that 5% cut. Most of the organizations, it wasn't enough to cut a full position. But that's something I think that we need to look at. I don't want to cut any more jobs across our community if we can at all get away with it. So that's just something I would like to know moving forward.
Okay. So I did reach out to the component units. I'm not aware of any of the outside agencies that would have to cut positions with the cuts that were done today. Obviously, they were just done today, so I haven't spoken to any of them about it. None of them did mention it while you were meeting with them. But I do know I did reach out to the museum and to the events complex because both of them had said that the cuts that were given to them, that would require them to lay off employees. So for the museum, that would be 1 employee. And for the events complex, they said that would be 4 employees.
Did they provide you with a breakdown on that?
Yes, they provided me with a dollar amount. Would you like those figures?
Yes, please. If you could, and if you could just email that too.
Okay, I can find them.
And Bonnie, just to chime in, is that for the events complex, is that with 4 job losses with the job sharing on top of the job sharing, or is that? Okay, thank you.
As that was my understanding. I didn't ask that question specifically, but it happened after the job sharing happened. So my impression was that it was, but I could follow up with Candy with that question. But Candy had said that the events complex would need an additional $288,732.71 to not lay off 4 employees. That would bring their budget up to $3,075,339.71 would be the total they would need. And then let me find the amount Bree said. I believe it was 20-something thousand.
While you're looking, Bonnie, at top of your head, do you know our cash carryover or not, or our reserves currently, or is that a?
I'm still projecting that they'll be roughly 39 million at the end of the year.
That's my understanding also.
Because we didn't.
Thank you.
We have just a tiny bit left over from last year of the cash carryover. Some of it was budgeted, and then just between the budget amendments, almost all of it has been spent, and we were at roughly 39 million last year. So that's where we're at. We're currently, obviously that's going to go down if the commission decides to supplement the revenues with reserves. And then also if the commission decides to move forward with spending 12 million of reserves for the lagoon building, that will bring that down as well. But my projection for June 30th of this year, so in another month, I think we'll be at around 39 million. Let me keep.
I see Rob on. Rob, did we make any money on that money last year? It was 39 last year. Are we still 39 this year?
Yeah, because we used some of the cash carryover to supplement the revenues, and then we also used the excess for the budget amendments. So that's why it's back down to what it was the previous year. But it'll be lower next year if we're going to use money out of reserves, not just the cash carryover, and also if we're going to fund 12 million of the building out of reserves, it'll go down significantly.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smith.
Yes.
Yes, we did make a little money on that. We will not be making nearly as much on it in the future. That's one of the reasons I would like to do that investment workshop, to work out with you where we want to move with respect to our investment portfolio and our investment policy. I've got a little different number than Bonnie's got. In looking at what the final number was, if we receive all of the revenue we anticipated this year, and we look at the budget resolutions that have been done this year, I have us with $37,400,000 as a cash carryover at the end of the year. Now Bonnie referenced some carryover that I'm not aware of that was different between the budget and what she was talking about carryover there. That's probably the difference she and I are looking at. But we're in that same general ballpark number for that. And we probably earned somewhere in the neighborhood of 2% on that money for last year. Moving forward, we're probably going to be looking at 1/8 of that, I would think, in the short term. So rather than 2%, we're going to be looking at 0.25%, maybe something like that.
Well, I like Bonnie's number better. If we're going to just be in the ballpark, let's go with Bonnie's.
Okay. Yeah, well,
sounds better.
Okay.
I'm reality aside, if we're talking not reality, but I just like Bonnie's number better.
Yeah, the numbers are moving around an awful lot this time of year. So I agree with you. I like her number better too. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
There's one other opportunity we haven't discussed yet, and I think it is a possibility. You know, we've cut roughly, I think it's 43 jobs over the last few years with an incentive program. And we can still look at that again. It's I understand that there is some possibility there that some employees might want to move on if they had some kind of incentive to do that. And I'm surely not advocating that we should lay off anyone. I think we as the county proper we've done an outstanding job with that. But I'm talking about within the county that there is a possibility of maybe picking up a few more. And I think we should maybe, after this budget's approved, we should maybe consider that again. I don't think we should hold this budget up for that. My position is still the same, is that use the carryover and whatever balance we need to take out of reserves, we take it out of reserves.
Okay.
I did, just so you know, I did find that number for the museum. It would be an increase of $24,564, which would bring, actually, I think it's a little bit higher than that, but it was roughly $25,000.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I have a sheet here that has a yellow line on it that says it's 27,769.
That's probably what it is, because that's what my estimate was when Bree gave me, she said 7%, but it actually ended up being 7-point-something%. So your number is actually probably correct.
Okay, very good.
I haven't found that email yet.
What was I didn't write down the events complex to keep the 4 jobs, 200.
Okay, so Breeze is 378,675 is the total amount they would need. And then, let's see. The events complex, let me find Candy's email again.
I got 288,732.71. Does that sound right, Bonnie?
Let's see.
88.
Sounds right. Let me find it.
That's what I wrote down too.
732.71.
Yeah, for the events complex.
Yeah.
Do we have heartburn about losing some jobs elsewhere? I mean, I know they're not Cork County, but what are thoughts on that, just as a discussion point?
My thought on it, you know, I was pretty hard on the events complex, but the thing we got to realize is the events complex lost all the, not all, but a lot of the revenue that was going to be coming in. So when you when that happens to you, you've got to cut back. And I think it's unfortunate, but that's the way the events complex has got to be managed by that board.
Yeah, I hate to agree, but I do agree. I mean, it's a painful agreement from that standpoint, because at some point in time, they got to work towards being self-sufficient, more so than what they have been. But that's for another time. That's a conversation for another time.
We gave them a line of credit for $200,000 also.
Was that what we advanced them, was 200?
200,000.
Yeah, I think it was 200,000.
And that came out of this year's budget, right, Commissioner Johnson?
That's correct.
Connie? Yeah.
Can I ask for Roy or Lauren's thoughts as well? Just to be on the same page.
Yeah. Lauren, Roy?
I'll go ahead. I agree on both sides. And that's why I'm asking the questions, and I need to, in Roy term, marinate on this a little bit. I think that it's not the direction that we want to move forward throughout our community is cutting more jobs. And one of the events complex positions that they're cutting, that person's been working out there for a significant amount of time. I mean, he was out there when I worked out there. And at the same time, the reality is we're cutting across the board, and we're looking at potentially offering incentives for retirement for our employees. So, I mean, I'm kind of caught in the middle. I'm not sure exactly the direction that I want to go. I don't want to cut employment opportunities across our community. But at the same time, we're looking at 5 jobs and things are going to get better. So, I mean, yeah, I'm stuck in the middle, Jeff. I'm not sure which direction exactly I want to go.
And I'll jump in if that's okay. We couple things I want to just to kind of get into this conversation. I think it's a bigger conversation. I did have in my notes, I do agree with Wally. We should look at there's some savings to be found after this budget in the volunteer program. I think that's a possibility. I hadn't had a chance to chime in. I'm okay with using our current carryovers at full level to help reduce the budget deficit. As far as going into reserves and maybe even answering this question, for me, there's another question I think that has to be answered, and that's the building. If we do decide, because when we made our motion, it was based upon having some of that money be paid for in a bond. If we can't do that now, it's $22 million. So I'll be honest, I'm in all levels, I'm really struggling about going into the reserves. If we're going to pull $22 million out of what's $37 to $39 million in reserves and take us to $19 to $17 million in reserves. And then if we take some out of the reserves to balance this budget, we're at $14 million in reserves. And I do believe 39 is too high, but going into what we're all agreeing is a more difficult fiscal time in the next couple of years, specifically next year, I do worry about digging into the reserves at that time. And I also struggle with saying we're going to cut employees when we're going to build 2 buildings that I do believe that have some efficiencies and have some positivity to the building. But it makes me ask the question, is it the right time? You know, when we started this process, I was okay with the buildings. And I personally want to buy a brand new F-150, and I got 2 kids going to college, kid having knee surgery, and I'm looking at buying a different house. So guess what? I can't buy a brand new F-150 now. Times have changed. So I think, to me, to answer some of those questions, I have to know where we're going to go with the building, because how I affect the reserves will have a lot to play in there. So that's just a couple thoughts for me.
Well, and a couple more moving pieces to add to that is, to all of our thinking is we still have the salary issue we got to settle. That's been sitting out there for over 2 years. And to me, that's a priority along with this budget. But even a bigger priority is, what is a year from now going to do to our reserves and going to do to our county and due to the outside agencies as well as our own county? I mean, we can wait and see, but if all the projections are right and we're following industry, 5%, what we did today, I'm telling you, it's gonna be 45, it's gonna be 30 plus next year. You know, and that type of thing. So you know, yeah, so we got more moving parts than just a building, than just salaries, than just balancing the budget, and on down the line. And we just can't do it all, in my opinion. And that's, if that's worth anything. And I think we need to take it one step at a time and clean some things up, and then take a look at things as we can monitor the economy. And if that means kick some cans down the road with a plan, that's what it means. I mean, things are different today than what they were the 1st of March. 1st of March was a whole different picture than what we are today. And I'm concerned. I'm concerned for our people. I'm concerned for Sweetwater County.
Mr. Chairman, we still have to get this process going.
Sure.
And that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. I think we've got to take it one step at a time. The step that I'm suggesting is that we take and carry over, use the carryover, take the balance for this budget out of reserves. And I'll answer the salary issue right now. As far as across the board, I think we freeze salary wages, and we freeze them, and we don't allow any increases other than the ones that have already somewhat been committed for. But I'm talking about across the board for next year, next fiscal year.
Oh, we know
Mid-year, if something turns around with the economy, we always have the opportunity to pay bonuses at the end of the year next year. So those are my thoughts. You got to keep these things in line, and we got to keep moving forward with some of these decisions.
We've got to keep going one step at a time. You're exactly right. And so I think they hit the nail on the head. First of all, is using reserves to do balance, as well as the carryover. 2, as the year progresses, we can take a look at retirement incentive. 3rd thing is we need to clean up the salaries that were discussed in November. That has to be done, and that can be done in next session. Also, we need to take a good hard look again at primarily these two, are we going to stay with what we did for cuts and that type of thing with regard to what Lauren brought up for jobs. The other thing I'd like to have a discussion with that's part of the budget is also, freezing on hiring without really needed positions. Right now we have, and I'll just say it, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Donna Lee, but at Clerk of Courts, we have 2 positions that we're advertising to hire. And the intent was that maybe this COVID thing wouldn't be as bad as it is. My question is do we still want to hire those 2 positions? Do we only want to hire one, put one on the back burner, that type of thing? That saves money for us because that's in the budget. So those are things we're going to have discussions as we move forward, but one thing at a time at a critical moment. The building is for another discussion. And it's going to be a difficult discussion, but we got to have it. So what else? Because I'm in agreement with Commissioner Johnson, one step at a time, with all these, realizing we've got a lot of things juggling in the air at the same time. So that's where I'm at. I think we pretty well figured out what we can do with the budget though, Bonnie, for now.
Well, just one question though, is in looking at some of the budgets we've come into this, there's been departments that have, the reason we have a $5 million cash carryover is because of over budgeting and not using that money. Is there places we can still look at cut based upon some of those historical numbers? And before we start going into deserves, because I'll be honest, one of the things we're not going to have next year, as much as we've already cut, we're not going to carry over $5 million to $6 million next year. We've cut so much. So to know that that's something to look at. So I guess, Bonnie, is there any other places you see that could have some efficiencies for us? And in looking at? Or could you send that to us, the mayor and I, on it for the next meeting? Because I think that's important information to have.
Yeah, there are some places in the cash carryover. There are some departments that do have cash carryovers. Let me bring up my cash carryover spreadsheet and take a look at it just to see.
While you're bringing that up, Bonnie, let me interject. I think Jeff had asked you to do some work, at his bequest.
Yes.
And that was emailed out late last night. Jeff, you got it?
I sure did. I reviewed it and commented back to Bonnie what excellent work it was, and I sure appreciated it. And I asked why she didn't find us, and I asked why she didn't find us more money.
Well, and is that a piece, is that a document we all want to look at and go over, and see if we want to deal with any of those entities that are involved that we've already dealt with, whether it's outside agency or department or any place else. I mean, if you're asking that question, Roy, the question's been asked also throughout the budget, not just carryover, that type of thing.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
I haven't had the time to pull everything to compare with Bonnie's recommendations. So I would like to have a little bit more time to look at that. I do agree with Commissioner Johnson that we don't really have any other option besides using the carryover. And so I think that that's something that I mean, at this point, I don't know if we probably need to make a motion for that. And I'd be happy to do so, that we use cash carryover in the upcoming fiscal budgeting session.
Okay, let me share.
Or can we not make that in this meeting?
That's right.
You can't make a motion in this meeting.
Yeah,
But you can let me know. You can all agree to that, though. You can all agree that we're going to use the full amount of the cash carryover. That way I can provide you with the deficit based on that information.
And it doesn't mean that we still can't continue conversations with groups based on Jeff's findings or the findings provided for Jeff by Bonnie. Doesn't mean we still can't look at those and still have conversations early in the session and do some transfers, does it, Bonnie?
No, you can change the numbers. So what's going to happen now is I have to advertise for the hearing at least a week and a half, which means I just have to get an advertisement put together and get it to the paper by Monday, this coming Monday. But that doesn't have to 100% accurately reflect the decision. It's just to advertise the public hearing so that the public has the opportunity to comment. So I will put that together and have that to the paper by Monday based on the results of today. We will have another workshop in 2 weeks from today, and that's usually kind of a wrap-up session, but at that point you can change whatever you want to change at that point. And then on Thursday following the workshop in 2 weeks, that's when we are scheduled to have the hearing. If you want to have an additional workshop within that time, we can do that if you feel that we need another one. I'm completely open to that.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I agree with what Lauren said. Let's make that decision. I think we're all in agreement.
Yeah.
We can just say, let's tell.
I agree.
Bonnie to use the carryover.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we're at. So.
Okay, so we're using the full amount of the carryover.
Yeah, it'll be an agenda item next time. And that type of thing. So. What more would you like to discuss? We've got a number of things we're going to put on the table as they come up, but they don't have to be discussed now. So what else do you want to put on table? I'd like to see us put Rob's request on. What do we feel is a solid reserve, where we want to keep that reserve account to after this has taken place, after we balance our budget. I'd like to have that conversation with Rob so we can get it set, and that needs to happen.
When do you want to have it during a budget workshop? Do you want to have it during the next budget workshop? I know we tried to have it at the last budget workshop, but we were running very behind and it kind of got dismissed.
What's the other commissioner's desire? Have Rob so we can set a reserve amount.
Well, I think other than the possibility of that influences what we might do with capital, that can wait a while. I don't think that should hinder this current budget that we're working on.
Okay.
And I think that the other issue that has to be, and I made the comment but got no response on it, is the freeze wages, and your comment didn't get any friction either. Traction, excuse me. Got a lot of friction, no traction.
Well,
is a freezing on hiring. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. Is we should not be hiring people if we can't afford them.
well, and we can, you know, I think that's a topic, an agenda topic for the next meeting as part of the budget is let's have that conversation. It's a hard one, but it's the right one to have. And then also, I also agree with you, Wally, with the aspect of the timing's not right to look at salaries or to grant salaries, you know, look at bonuses. But at the same time, I think we need to have that conversation of have a plan ready so we know what it is with a targeted implementation date. But yet, if we check our barometers at that targeted implementation date, we can still move it down the road a ways until the economy, at least that way staff knows, the rest of staff knows that there is something that's going to happen when the times are right, either totally as a whole amount or incremental steps working to meet that amount. In other words, you know, how many steps over time to get to that amount. So I agree with you. We got to have those conversations, and we need to bring closure to that salary study with recommendations one way or another.
I'll just throw out, I do agree that we have to look at a freeze. I think with all the other cuts, we don't have a choice but to look at a freeze. You know, as far as the salary study goes, I do believe it's difficult to implement it now. But I don't know if I like the message that sends to our employees that 10 department heads were worth a raise 6 months ago, and they're not now. And even though it's a different time and economically, we've got to make sure the message is put that they are valued people, because I've said for you the whole time I've been a commissioner that the greatest strength in this county is the employees, and they need to know that. And I don't want to send a message that is counter to that either.
Well, and that's why I say, you know, you have a plan for them to be implemented when the time's right, rather than say, oh, we'll look at them again when the time's right. You have a committed plan and make a commitment to it, which you're making a commitment to employees that you're going to take care of them, but you're going to make sure that things are moving back in the right direction before you do them, rather than do them when you're in the reverse direction. But in the meantime, like Commissioner Johnson said, until that happens, we still go back. You can still go back to bonuses. So I just think we have to finish that process and go from there, and not put it on the back burner anymore.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
As I said before, we started this process of cutting back. There's two things you look at. You look at head count and you look at capital. And several years ago, we started this process of voluntary out program. And that's worked very, very well. And what the intent was there is not to lay off anyone. And I'm talking about core county. And we haven't laid off one individual. And we reduced over 40 positions. And so I think we've done our homework. The commission has done their homework and have made the right decisions. The issue now is what is capital. We're looking at capital. And I stated that when we started this whole process. We should not be looking at headcount. And I think the freeze, when we talk about freezing salaries and wages and hiring, that's a whole different animal than laying people off.
Exactly. I agree with that.
I strongly feel about that.
I think we can.
The people that are left in the county, the people we've still got in the county, they've had to take up the slack, and they have. They've done an outstanding job. I think the county, as Roy has said, we've got outstanding employees. We do. And they've taken up the slack for those 40 some odd positions. And the county, in my opinion, since I've been here, is running as good or better than it ever has. And I very much appreciate that. And that's on the backs of our employees. And I thank them for that because they've done it. And it's now that we've got to be careful. Freezing salaries, I don't think is hurting them, but and freezing hiring is not hurting them. And those are the things that we need to keep in the back of our mind.
I agree. I think I think that's on the agenda for the next meeting, Commissioner. I truly do. I don't think we can ignore it. So we'll make sure that it's on the agenda with Sally for that part of it for our next meeting. So we have that discussion. I'd like to get a general feeling for the thoughts of having HR notified to put a hold on the two positions, or so we can talk about them at the next meeting as well, as to whether we release them or not. I don't know. What's your thoughts there?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think this is something that the public deserves to have on an agenda that's posted.
Yep.
And so, I mean, as it pertains to employees and everything else. So that's my 2 cents. I think we need to wait and have this discussion at our next meeting.
I agree with you.
Sorry. I mean, I think it's a good discussion. I think it's very important, and I agree with Commissioner Johnson and what he's saying around it. But I feel like this isn't the right time and place to have the conversation.
Very good. We'll put that on the agenda too, because that'll come under freezing positions. Anything else to add, commissioners? Is there anything else for this workshop? Bonnie?
I don't have anything. So if you don't want to make any additional changes, then we'll just move forward with the figures that we have right now.
Okay, one thing just crossed my mind. People are getting tired of hearing me talk. In that budget each year, within the reserves, there's those line items or certain things. Are those necessary?
So in order to change them, you would have to make a motion. So that would have to be done in an open meeting, not in a workshop. But that is something that you can change. It just has to be changed by a motion. You're welcome to change those.
Okay, I was wondering how that works. And that
Yep, it just has to be done in a motion. So if you want to do it at the next meeting, you can do
I'd
that.
like-
You can do it at any point in time during the year.
I'd like to have that discussion at a later date. Doesn't have to happen right away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just put it on the agenda whenever you want to have it and let me know, or let me know and I can put it on the agenda.
Will do. Thank you, Bonnie. Anything else, commissioners? Are you ready to call it a day?
Well, I'm a little worried about Roy. You know, he's lost all his friends, and I'm not going to sleep well tonight.
You know, Wally, my mom always paid people to be my friends when I was a kid. So when times were tough economically, I didn't have any back then anyway. So I can deal with it, and I'll just acrimoniously deal with the fact that my wife's friends are now.
And that's why you can't buy a new F-150.
The payment.
Anyhow, commissioners, great job today. Bonnie, John DeLeon, thanks for being there. Those of you that are still on, thank you for the work you've done to make this budget session work so well, and have a great evening. And everybody, please stay well and be safe. Thank you. This workshop is now adjourned. Have a good one.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you.
Thank you.